hustle. Every day, all day. This is how we roll. This is 97.9, the BOX.
Good morning, my good friend Sujit. Hello.
This is so official. This is my first time on live.
Is it really? I get to be your first time.
My first time.
That's phenomenal. I'm just honored.
Do I need more light? Am I good?
I mean, you're a little dim, my friend, but you are out in LA, so it's very early there. I know.
Let me see what I can do.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I got more light. Is that better or should I put more on?
You're good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're good. I think so. You know, I see some hearts coming up here, so you get the thumbs up stamp of approval from,
All right,
from folks. So anyway, good morning. If you are here this morning, you are here for the business behind the music, which we do every Tuesday and Thursday right here on the Box Instagram. I'm Terri Thomas. I'm the operations manager here in Houston for Radio 1, which means I program 97.9 The Box, Magic 102.1, 92.1 Radio Now, as well as our online Praise Houston station. And that includes the radio and all the creative aspects of the station. So it's pretty great. And my guest today is a very good friend, longtime friend, Sujit Kundu, who is the CEO of SkamArtist and also is a veteran on the record label side of things with working with independent artists as well as major label. So really runs the gamut. So Sujit, I'm glad that I'm your first IG Live. I'm super honored. And so thank you. Oh, Sujit, why didn't you shave for this? Hi, Brian, Killer Bee. He's doing that no shave, quarantine thing.
It's kind of a mess, but hey, it started out as just I get my hair cut because I don't want to clean up after myself, and then it started out as there was no haircut places open, so I bought a razor or a clippers, and they're sitting right here, but I just decided to let it go. I'm going to decide on Sunday if I'm going to go another 15 days or if I'm going to let it go.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Well, Sujit is here. He's got so much great information to share. So I want to talk a little bit, just give people just a general background of your background in the music business. And then, we'll dive into, what inspired you to start Skam and talk a little bit more about that as well.
I mean, I'm kind of a Jamaican of the music industry. I kind of do a little bit of everything. SkamArtist is a booking agency, primarily DJs, but I strive to be full service. So we've tour managed. We tour managed Pitbull in his prime. We tour managed Afrojack in his prime. We've managed artists from Remy Ma to several other artists, and then how I know you is through my other business, which is I do radio promotion, primarily crossover radio, which in Houston would be the Box, and but I also do top 40 as well. And so I worked at Universal for 7 years, and then I stopped when they merged with Republic, and then I worked at Epic for 4 years, where I think we had 15 number ones in like 2 years. So
yeah.
Good run.
Quite a track record. I do also want to throw in there with Skam that you also, in addition to DJs, but you've also managed influencers. And, don't know if you want to name drop, don't necessarily need to. You can just take my word for it. But, when I'm talking about influencers, I'm talking about famous people that people want to hire to come host things. So
yeah, I mean, we
very famous people.
we repped Amber Rose, we repped Black China. The agency's definitely diverse. Like we cross all genres.
Right. So that's one of my favorite things about it. What inspired you to start Skam?
I mean, it's just kind of, I was a promoter, and then, when I was younger, all this stuff was kind of just starting. So we kind of all discovered it together. Like hip hop was just starting, clubs were starting, and, it just one thing led to another, and it just, I was in college, and it just kind of happened, to be honest with you. There wasn't really a 5-year plan of I was going to do this, but I just kind of grew with the culture, And as artists grew and as people my age grew, all of a sudden we just kind of grew together.
So, with Scam, what is really the service that you provide? What is a booking agent do?
Well, a booking agent is often misconstrued for an employment agency. We're not. So what I do is I field the calls. So if you're an artist or a DJ, and you might get 5 calls a week or 10 calls a week, and then I distinguish which ones are real and which ones aren't, and depending on your demand, I might direct you on which promoters or venues are the right ones to play in, and then we do everything, from handle the contracts to helping with travel to making sure your artwork's approved correctly, making sure your deposits are in, your money's collected. We do it all once you accept a gig.
One of the best things about you, and I think there's many, but I'm speaking from personal experience. One of my favorite things about you is your phenomenal networking ability, and I mean phenomenal. It's like you know people that other people don't know. You know how to get to people other people can't get to. Talk a little bit about what's always been your mindset when it comes to marketing, because I really do think your Rolodex is spectacular, and you're just able to get in rooms and have conversations with people that the average cat can't get into, and I think that really helps your business.
I think it's just like, it's more of a lifestyle, less of a job. And I'm always thinking of everybody's best interest rather than, like if something makes sense for you and it makes sense for someone else, then I connect each other. But if you ask me to do something and I don't think it makes sense for the other person, I might say no. I mean, for example, I rep several DJs, and, the last 6 years I worked with LA Reid, and people would always tell me, hey, take this song or take this artist or take this to them. And even though I talked to them 3, 4, 5 times a day, if I didn't believe the project was warranted his time, I wouldn't do it. So even though they're my clients on one end, I never kind of crossed the line. So I think when it comes to that, I think when I call, I think people will realize that I'm coming from, it's really something that's probably real.
Yeah, I think, with you, it's always what you see is what you get. I mean, your passion level is off the charts. When you believe hard. And that's, I think, one of the things that we have in common, because my passion level is off the charts. And so, it's a beautiful thing when that passion meets together on the same project. And when it doesn't, your passion continues to drive that force on the things that you believe in. And you continue to sort of, dog with the bone. One of the things that I love about you is that your tenacity when you believe is just really above, head and shoulders above everything else. I mean, I think that your passion has been one of the things that's allowed you to sustain and reinvent yourself in this business over and over and over and over again. How important do you think passion is for somebody who's trying to be in the game?
I mean, it goes back to that saying of if you enjoy what you do, then you never work a day in your life. So, I don't come from a music background. I come from, my family's from India. Like, I would have never thought I'd be doing hip hop or crossover music. So I think that, it's just like I'm addicted. So it's crazy. Speaking of, like last week on Friday, I get on the phone with Don Tolliver, and I'm calling him because I'm hearing his song on the radio in LA, and I'm like freaking out like a teenager, like it's my first time, right? But I mean, we've had obviously several #1 records all the time, but I still, when I hear a record on the radio for the first time, I'm like a 12-year-old, and he's like, what are you going crazy for? I'm like, bro, your song's on the radio. Like,
I love that. I think that's amazing. One of the things that I want to dive into, and there's so much that you bring to the table, but one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, especially as it pertains to DJs and influencers that are really trying to compete on a higher level, every city that's represented here. And there's a lot of people from Houston that chime into the chat, but, lots of people from all over the country and sometimes all over the world will pop into these chats just to get some info. So, you don't sign just anybody. Anybody just can't come to you and be a part of your roster. You have standards like you should, right? So what are the types of things that you look for before you'll sign somebody, and undertake them as their booking agent?
well, I think the key is that they have to have a business. So, we're a commission-based business. So 15% of nothing is nothing. So if and everybody comes to you with the same approach of I'm great and look at how talented I am. So I think the key is that you have to do the heavy lifting on your own at the beginning. And then once you surface your head up, it'll come to me from other places. It won't come to me from you. So, like say for example, there was a really hot DJ in Texas. I wouldn't need him to call me. You'd call me. So,
Right.
or a club owner in Texas would call me, or one of my DJs would call me and be like, "Hey, like, so, you kind of have to just like make it so you pop your head above water and other people recognize it." And then, I'm talking to, like you alluded to earlier with the networking, is like I've got so many people that I'm talking to on a daily basis that if something pops up, usually they'll tip me to it, or even if someone doesn't tip me to it, if you're getting that traction, I'm watching social media and I'm constantly looking around and I'm out and about, I might see it. And if I see your name popping up 3 or 4 or 5 times in my world, then I might be like, hey, well, who's this person? Why are they popping up everywhere? And then I want to investigate, or same as if it's a radio station playlist and I see a song I don't recognize, unsigned or what have you, then I might be like, hey, what's this? And then try to suss through it.
Right. Makes good sense. One of the things, with DJs and, just your advice, like how does somebody build their brand to the point where they poke out? I mean, what are some of the qualities that you find that tend to be in common with the people that can get to the next level
Well,
on the DJ side?
I always say there's no right answer,
Mm-hmm.
because for what works for one person might not work for the other. Somebody might have a huge Instagram following, their live show might be better, So, I think it's the same thing as if you're a DJ, then you have to immerse yourself in the culture that you want to be successful in. So if you want to be a festival DJ, then you probably need to go to all the festivals, right? And if you want to be a nightclub DJ, then you need to go to those right dinners, and you need to go to the right parties, and you need to be at the right events, and you need to network with those promoters and those club owners. And so I think there's no right answer. It just kind of depends on what works best for you. I mean, now you might be an online DJ, like you may catch a buzz based on an internet set, with Twitch or Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, whatever. I think I I suggest at the beginning everybody do everything, and you kind of have to work twice as hard as everyone else. And when you get that call, you better be ready to get up and go and not make an excuse. I remember just recently, a couple years ago, I met Tyga for the first time, and I had a meeting with him during the day, and he's like, all right, come by the studio later that night, and it was like 9:45 at night, and like he hadn't called me, and I was like, I'm going to sleep, and if I don't get the phone, then I don't get the phone. And at like 9:55, I was like half asleep, and the phone rang, and he was like, yo, can you come to the studio? And I got up and I went to the studio, and he played records, and one of them was Taste, and here we are 2 years later, and we're both, and that's my client, right? So, but like, had I slept and not got up, or and you could, not to overhype myself, but I could have easily put it off and said, and not answer the phone, or said I'm going to do it tomorrow, or let's do it another day. But like, everybody's busy, so you only get that. You might, he might have gone off and been busy for the next 3 or 4 or 5 days, or he might have made some other decisions that night that didn't include me. So to this day, if like someone calls me, I usually get up and go no matter what. And a lot of people lead with excuses. I can't, or I'm busy, or this, or and I always make the joke of, sometimes getting someone on the phone takes 5 assistants. Set up a call, set up this, can we do Thursday at 3, at 5 at 3? And I'm like, bro, just call me.
That is you, though, really. You just call me. So, and anytime I call Sujit, I can't recall in our years of friendship, I really can't recall any time that I've called you and you've not answered on some level, even if it was just a text to say, I will call you back, and you do it, whatever time it may happen on that particular day. It may be hours later, but your word is your bond, and you follow through with that. So, the things that you're talking about are really the things that you live. And I think that's what makes you stand out. And so one of my passions for doing this particular series is to help people that are interested in the music and entertainment business, find their way to stand out as well. So when somebody is sort of, DJing, doing the little club sets here and there in the city that they're in, and they do want to grow, I love that you're suggesting to experience everything. One of the things that I think people get wrong when they start to go down this road of being in the entertainment business, because it's such a me business, is that they think it's always me, and it's, the arrogance of standing in line about who I am and so forth and so on. But when you're growing and you're building a network, it's really not about you, right? It's about putting yourself in rooms with other people. Can you talk a little bit about the best way to network when you're starting out? Because I think a lot of people get that wrong. It's this is why I'm hot conversation instead of bringing or letting the work and the evidence speak for itself.
Well, I think you have to understand who is paying the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I always it's like my DJs abuse me a little because they think that I'm mean and like a bully. But I always tell them that, if you go to a nightclub, there's really only one opinion that matters, and that's the guy that's booking you. So, you could say, hey, 10 girls said I was great, or I did a great job, or, I can usually tell quickly, if you did a good job or not, because I might get a text in the middle of the night. You might, if you get a call back, like, hey, come, we want them back. They really did a great job. I normally know really quickly what's happening, and you kind of have to, that club owner knows his venue better than anybody else. So, he may know what music is going to be better, or, Terry, you know the box better than anybody. So I can tell you my records that I want to hear, but you might be like, hey, listen, have you ever been to Houston? We don't play that. Houston, I remember the first time I went there, has a sound of its own. And there's records that are local to Texas. And that if you didn't go to Texas and you didn't experience Texas, you wouldn't know that they've got their own sound. So, I think that you really have to know who you're catering to. And I think at the beginning, you have to follow the rules. So, if you're going to a club and they have a dress code and you're new, follow it. If you're going somewhere and people have, they don't want you to bring a bunch of people. I go everywhere alone. You know what? I've been to clubs and there's 500 people outside and they're like, Sujit, who you with? I'm like, it's just me. They're like, come on in. They're like, who you with? I'm with 4 people. They're like, hold on a second. Right? You gotta get in where you can fit in. And then, as you move up the food chain, you might have an opportunity to get away with a little more.
Right. So one of the things that I like about the agency is that you rep men and women. I'd love to see the ladies that you represent, the women DJs. How is it different for women trying to grow in the game as opposed to men? What's the journey? Is it different? Is it the same? How do you view it?
I mean, girls usually get paid more. They can, if you're an equally starting person, they probably will make a little more money because females typically have higher social media than men, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that access, and I think that I don't really judge people on men or women. I think the way I do it with my thing is that there's a customer that wants something for, there's a customer that's looking for something. So someone might be looking for a DJ that can get them press. So they may be like, Page Six might like them, or they may be able, their PR department might be able to get recapped. They might be looking for someone who could play a small room to VIPs. They might be looking to a big room DJ. They might be looking for a music format. So I don't really think that it's the difference between guys and girls. I think everyone has to work equally hard, and I think there's pros and cons to both sides of it, right?
Mm-hmm. I love that you're talking about some of the nuances on what the needs are from the client perspective. Somebody that can get them press, or somebody that could play for a particular clientele, like a small room of VIPs, and not make it weird, and make it entertaining, or somebody who could, hit the biggest, festival stage ever, and you can plug that person in. Go ahead, Suj.
No, I was going to say when I started, and I first learned about Fashion Week, they wanted a DJ that could wear their dress, right? Like, so that was important to them. So a guy couldn't have did that, right? Like they're at Fashion Week and they're launching their new clothing line, and they need someone who can, support their clothing line while they DJ, and they want that picture in the booth. And it just varies. Like you can't, it's like somebody who's coming to book Little John, I can't sell them, a club DJ from LA. They're just different, they're different tiers.
Hmm. I think that's a good point, and I think that's important to sort of circle that back on the DJ, back to the point of viewing yourself as a business, understanding the different nuances of the business and why clients are booking you. I always tell DJs here, especially, when I meet people, I'm like, you got to understand that you're not going to the club to play for yourself. You're just not, right? You're there to provide a service for the person that's paying the bill, to your point. And I find that there's some basic types of DJs. If you could build your brand or build your following, you may be somebody who attracts a particular clientele. That's the pop and bottles crew, right? They follow you everywhere you go. They're there with lots of money. They're buying bottles, they're buying sections, and then the club owner may book you because he or she knows the type of clientele that you bring. Conversely, you may be a DJ where all of the beautiful people follow you, right? Those are the ones that are going to get all the photo snaps and all over the gram with the beautiful looks and this, that, and the third. And so all the beautiful people follow you, which bring the people with money that want to be around the beautiful people, and therefore you get booked because of that. Or that you just really know how to manipulate your music sets and create such an environment where people want to come and hear you play, but you know how to manipulate that dance floor so by the end of the night the bar receipt is still looking right, because that's a huge part of the whole business. Is it's just not who gets in free before 11 on ladies night, it's how much money is being made at the end of the night. The type of time, the good vibes that people are having, so that they'd want to come back and play or support the club again or follow that particular promoter. So there's a reason for it. And I love, Sujit, you're mentioning some of the other nuances, like about Fashion Week, because there's a whole other side, right? Corporate DJing. I know you handle some of that sometimes. You may have Coca-Cola call you and they need somebody, but
Well, I think, just a couple things that popped in my head was that, you have to kind of pick a lane and go with it. So, like a lot of times when I talk to a DJ and I say, hey, what do you play? And they say, well, I can play everything. And so someone has to know who they're booking. So when they book, a DJ, they may be like booking them for a hip hop set. They don't want the guy to show up and play house music because they're booking a hip hop DJ. And if people don't know what they're booking or who they're supporting, then the customer doesn't know who they're coming to see. The club owner doesn't know who they're going to get, and you're in no man's land, right? So if you want to play festivals and play your own records and play new music and sing it, then live in that world. But if you want to play a Vegas club, you know, you're going to have to dumb it down a bit. You're going to have to make it a little more commercial. You're going to have to be very flexible and willing to listen to the managers. I know in Vegas, a lot of times they like DJs that, show up on time, that don't get too drunk, that, are able to work with the artists. Because when the artists come in and are doing 2 or 3 songs in the middle of the night, the artists have to be comfortable with that DJ. And he's not burning them before playing huge records, making it impossible for him to have a good show. Like he's setting him up good. Like there's just you just have to decide who you want to be. Because it's like you said, you can't go into that DJ booth and think you're the star, because you have to work within the whole network of the whole club throughout the whole night, right? If you're an opening DJ, you can't go in there playing all the smash records and then leaving the headliner comes on and is like, what did you just do, bro? You just left me for nothing.
I was just about to ask about that, because I've seen that play out so many times where somebody has the huge opportunity to open for, a big name DJ, and they go in there and they just blow out the set. And you're like, what are you doing, bro? Nobody's in here. It's 10 o'clock. The crowd's just trying to come into the building, warm up. You got the headliner coming up. You're playing all the huge joints now. Like, what are you doing? And
Well,
I think in their mind, they're thinking, I'm going to show them this is why I'm hot. But instead, nah, man, you're looking like an ass.
Well, I mean, that's just it, is that, a lot of people see it as their opportunity to shine, but, hence you have a lot of artists that give you this do not playlist because they've been burned and they've been, put in that bad position. But, I know Little John goes to the club 1 hour early every single time he plays because he wants to hear what the guy before him does. So, not that he's going to tell him to stop or tell him to do anything else. He just based on the vibe and the energy of the night, like he's coming and he's preparing to continue that vibe, right? So, you know, a lot of DJs too, they show up to the club and then they're complaining about the equipment. It's not right. Like, like you got to go to sound check. If the equipment's a big thing and you've had issues with it, go at 8 o'clock and do sound check. Make sure the equipment's right. Make sure everything sounds right. You know, if you are the headliner and you have a support DJ, you can talk to management of the club ahead of time and be like, hey, listen, this is kind of what we want them to play like, or this is the sound and this is the vibe. So make sure when you book an opener, you're booking someone who will be able to work with us. And then a lot of times, if you're a good opener, then when that DJ comes back, it's like, hey, we liked Terry, make sure she's our opener. And, the next thing you know, you might get an opportunity to open for that guy in 3 or 4 or 5 other cities. And then, who knows? It could go from there. Or, I always tell people if you're in a big city like LA or New York, you might get the call at 8 p.m. because someone's sick. And that might be your way in. And, and you could say, oh, well, hey, I'm at dinner. Well, get up from dinner because you might not get the shot again. And whoever's at dinner, if they're your friend, they'll be like, cool.
Right. I mean, you got to stay ready to me. I mean, when opportunity knocks, you got to answer the door. That's the beginning, middle, and end, because there's a line of people hoping and praying for that same opportunity that you may disregard in that particular moment. One of the other things that I love about Scam is that you're not just an agency that reps for the US, but you also, you've able to secure business and work with different countries and people, all over the world. And one of the things that I love about the music business, and I think that's one of the things that's been accentuated during this time, as we're all being forced to stay inside and we're online more and this, that, and third, is that we're seeing that, if you didn't know it before, music is a global society, right? The one thing that has not stopped during this whole COVID-19, quarantining, whatever else, is that people are still consuming music and it's all over the world. So as a DJ, and I'll say this, I think that in a lot of places, people are fascinated by American culture and American DJs, but there's opportunity out there for you. What are some of the differences, Suj, in some of the needs or the opportunity for people to play overseas? Like, how would somebody put themselves in the best position possible to open up to a global market?
I mean, that's a little tricky, right? Like, you usually have to find somebody who's come here and heard you and wants to take a chance on you over there. I mean, to be real, like in terms of US DJs going to Europe and stuff, it doesn't really translate unless you have a club or a local DJ in that area. Like we do okay in Asia, Tokyo, but there's a One Oak in Tokyo, so they opened a lot of doors for DJs there. Like Asia's been pretty good. Like, but like a lot of times when you go to other countries, the taxes and the currency make it difficult to travel. So, if
Right.
you go to Australia, they're trying to take 30% taxes, and their currency isn't as strong as the US dollar. So a $20,000 gig in Australia could be $7,000 here. And to fly all the way over there and to lose all the time to go over there, the willingness to travel isn't always there. So, I'd say for like the international business, like Little John was really the only one that I have that traveled consistently outside of America. But, in terms of the vision for Scam, we have Friction, who I think popped in here from London. We have Bliss in Dubai. We have Lead in Japan. We have Horizon in Australia. So, but a lot of that comes back to me investing the time and going over there. It's kind of like I said at the beginning, if you want to play at a club, you have to immerse yourself in the culture. So I realized that if I wanted Scam to be a worldwide brand, I had to go to those countries and put in work and put in time, which I was doing a lot of pre-corona, but now it's kind of been on the back burner. And I'll also say that, technology's made the world much smaller. Like when I was first traveling to New York, going to New York was like a big deal. Like, packing and getting ready. And I don't know if it's because I was younger, but it just seemed like the world was a lot farther apart. And, now I'll go to Tokyo for 2 nights and come back. I'll leave on Thursday and I'll be back on Sunday. And people think I'm crazy, and it doesn't even occur to me.
Right. It's just a way of how you approach things. And I think it's just, I don't know, really embracing that it's a global society. And, I just feel like the internet does make things, even though things are far away, it does make things feel a lot closer.
You got to think about it. Back in the day, if you were a DJ, getting the vinyl was 50% of the battle. So like
Yeah.
the bigger DJs, like the Flexes of the world, would get everything first, and then if you weren't a bigger DJ in your town, when the first 5 copies came to that city, they're giving it to the 5 biggest guys, and then you might have to wait 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks for another shipment for the pressing and for all this stuff to come. Now, if the box premieres a song, it could be in Japan before the song ends. Like the guy could have it downloaded and be playing it before you even get off the air. Whereas before, it might have taken him. He might have had to come here and go back to Japan. Like, look at all these new records I got. But now he's in 3 seconds. He's got the music.
Exactly. And then too, it's a lot easier for DJs to travel now because, it's all in your computer. I mean, of course, a smart DJ, you got your computer, but you're always on the road with whatever your backup plan is. The worst possible thing is you get that gig you've been waiting for your whole life. It's going to be a difference maker for you. And then your computer hoses up or your hard drive is jacked or whatever. So will preach the gospel of being overly prepared when you're traveling, to make sure that no matter what, you can pull that gig off, no matter what obstacle comes your way. Don't allow your own technical stress or falling short with you and your equipment on that technical side of things be the reason you can't bring your gig to fruition. So I'm always an advocate of being overly prepared.
I think when there was records and you had to fly with records, we used to always bring 20 records in the carry-on, because if your check-in got lost and your records didn't make it, you didn't want your set to go to hell. So you could borrow the main hits from the opening DJ. You at least had 20 of your records that you wanted to play that were unique to you in your carry-on. So life still went on. You could still put together enough of a set so the show would go on. And I think now a lot of DJs have a backup laptop, or they have a backup drive that they travel with, or if they have some specific equipment that is unique to them, they might travel with it rather than rely on a smaller city that might not have the audio vendors to have that specific type of gear. If it's not like a standard, like a Technique 1200 that kind of everyone uses, then, they might, they come prepared.
I'm just going to bring up one thing because you mentioned it earlier. I think it's brilliant and smart. Sound check. I'm just going to sound check that word, sound check. View yourself like a business, take yourself seriously, and do the things necessary to, when you carry yourself like a business, I think you're teaching people how to treat you. I think we all teach people how to treat us. And so when you can carry yourself like a business, and you have a certain protocol that you live by, where you're coming in here in a very professional way, you're doing a sound check, you're getting in there, you're making sure that you're looking at all potential obstacles from your event, going in a great way. I think you're showing people that you're somebody of the next level. I do want to touch a little bit on money, and then I see some questions coming in, and of course, Sujit also works with a lot of independent artists on the local major label side of things. So if you've got questions there, or as a DJ or influencer trying to break into a larger world, just give us a second. We'll get to some of those questions. But, when it comes to money, Suj, I mean, you don't rep cheap people, right? I mean, your people, they're making a nice piece of change. So, I mean, you've repped and been able to work with people that are, getting 5 and 6 figures to DJ a night, so the average cat in the city might be getting, $500, $750, if, DJing a few hours at the club, but you're next level here, where you might do less gigs, but you're making more money. You could be one of those DJs. So in terms of being able to command those major 5 and 6 figure dollars, what does it take to really get there?
Are you ready for my famous line?
I'm ready.
In order to make money, you have to do one of 3 things. You have to sell tickets, you have to sell bottles, or you have to bring women. Those are the three things. And the ones that make the big bucks do all three.
Boom, mic drop. All right. I love it because that's the answer I was looking for, and I just needed for you to say it because people want to do that, and ask all the time. And I will say this: don't sell yourself short. You know, somebody has asked a question. I'll go back and find it, but I'm to credit the person properly. But I did see a question coming through the feed. Is like, how do you avoid the scammers? Suj, how do you avoid the too good to be true people out here that are trying to sell you a bag of BS when they're trying to hire you and your services?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means. Are you talking about someone who's misrepresenting talent and
Yeah, maybe somebody like there's you're legit. Everybody's not a you. I mean, how do you avoid the scammers? Check references. I mean, what's your advice there?
I mean, I think now better than anyone, I mean, now more than any time before, it's probably easier. You can DM the artist, they usually have some sort of real contact information on their social media platforms or some way to reach them. You know, like I think when that happens, it's because when people get the answer they don't want, right? Like I've had people call me before and say, "Oh, I got, Little John booked for this." And I'm like, "No, you don't." And they're like, "Oh no, I got it done already." And I'm like, "No, you don't." And they're like, "It's done." And I'm like, "In this case, I'm the only one that can speak for it, and it's not done, and we wouldn't do that anyway." And that person's misrepresenting themselves. And if you continue that, that's on you. But like, I think that, again, the internet made the world so small. I don't think it's really hard to vet and check people. And, I know a lot of people, especially from out of the country, call all the time asking for stuff, and we give them numbers and they don't believe the numbers. And then they're being misquoted by other people. And, we're a transaction-based company. We want the deal to get done. So we're not trying to over negotiate and talk ourselves out of it. If we're giving you a number or a quote, it's because that's what we're being told. So I think you can get that stuff out on the internet. You can kind of feel through it and like find the contact and double check. And if you're unsure of it, like, ask for references. You can say, "Hey, give me a couple references before I send my money to you. I want to talk to 2 or 3 legitimate people that I know. Who else have you dealt with?" Like, if I don't know you, so if somebody says, "Oh, I've worked with Terry," and I don't know him, I might call you and be like, "Terry, is this guy a go?" You might be like, watch yourself. Like, he was a little shady. Everything worked out, but it's cool. Or you might say, "He was great. Don't worry about it." So the same comes to me if someone calls me and they're like, "What do you think about this person?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. It's good." Or I might be like, "Hey, listen, they were shaky. Like, make sure you get your money up front." Like, well, we communicate with each other. We trade notes.
Please don't think that that people don't know people. That drives me crazy. So one of my pet peeves, and I've got a good question here, so I'm going to come right with that. But one of my pet peeves in the game, period, is people misrepresenting themselves. Oftentimes in my world, like it's both sides. I'll get a DJ and an artist misrepresenting themselves. So artists may approach me about trying to secure an opportunity with one of my brands, but will bald-faced lie about what they're doing in other cities because they're saying it's in another city that I don't actually have the resources to check on that. But the business is like this big. So if you're telling me that you're blowing up in a particular city and this particular radio station or DJ is really messing with you, 9 times out of 10, I know that person. And the 10th time out of 10 is I know somebody that knows that person. So I have the ability to go verify the information. And the biggest way to get yourself on the "you're full of it" list is to lie. So I just really want to caution people about overestimating. You should absolutely be confident in your abilities. If you don't believe in you, then nobody else will. But don't lie and really misrepresent what's happening with your brand, because that's going to put you in a lane for you to appear non-trustworthy. And that's, your reputation is, hey man, your word is bond, right?
I mean, just take it between our relationship, right? Like people know what I do, but yet people will misrepresent the box.
Yeah.
Like labels will come to me and be like, "Oh, we're close to the box this week." And I'll be like, "No, you're not, dude. Like, why are you, I call Terry. Like, why would you possibly like," and then I'll be like, "Terry, did I misread this?" And you'll be like, "No." And you'll be like, I'm like, "Because if I did, good for me, but like, so that person will automatically lose credibility for me. Like,
Right.
and so then the next time they call, I'll be like, "Dude, this guy's full of shit. Like, we can't listen to him. Half the time he's lying anyways." Like, but like, it's like you said, like, you never know who I know, and I never know who you know. And everybody's got a friend, everyone's got a cousin, everyone's got a brother, and they're all telling everyone what's really happening. So you just got to be careful.
Okay. So Greer 120. I hope I'm reading the question right, so I'm going to throw it out there. This is basically, I think, a question about how to become a DJ for an artist, right? So how can you get on the radar with an artist to become that official DJ for an artist? In your experience, Suj, how does that work?
They're usually friends.
Okay.
The reason is because, well, it's two things. Is one, that DJ gig for an artist usually doesn't pay that well until the artist really becomes bigger. I mean, I think I heard it on when you were talking to Azim. You guys talked about entourages a little, and the artist having to pay for all those bills. So when an artist is younger and developing, and he can only take 2 or 3 or 4 people, his budget to move people around isn't that much. So and when you're on the road and you're spending 24 hours a day with someone, you have to get along. So you can't always have a total stranger. And when you're on a bus or you're at airports all the time, and like how people carry themselves, or if like you have to have some sort of synergy, and you can't just manufacture that, right? Like, so I guess if an artist becomes much bigger and they're a stadium act, then they can just hire a DJ, and then you just become part of the band, and you don't really have to have that personal interaction with the talent. You just become another band member. But at the beginning, it's usually you have to have some sort of personal relationship.
Yeah, I think of that. Like I think about Lizzo and the young woman that DJs with her, and she works in radio up in Minneapolis, I think. So they met whenever they met and had a connection and a vibe, and probably a lot of mutual support there. And then when Lizzo hits, this young lady's still out there on the road with her. Or I will say, and I've seen this play out in my own experience with some of my own DJs, where they may not be the DJ that officially DJs for the artist, but there's a concert that's happening and something happens, like the DJ that's supposed to play misses their flight or gets the flu or whatever the case may be. There are those instances where the universe opens up an opportunity and you get to slide in there. And at that point, how you handle yourself and that set and what you do in doing that particular job can be a building block for a new relationship. So I think one of the themes here during this conversation is, don't just be ready, stay ready, right? Stay ready at all times.
There is also a double standard, just so you know. Like, if you're the DJ, you don't get to act like the artist. So the artist can be 20 minutes late, you can't. Like, like the artist can, have a big room service bill and afford to pay it, you can't. Like, you have to realize your place in the food chain. And I know offhand, because some of my DJs DJ for artists. I mean, they're flying coach, the artist is flying first. They're having to go to sound check. The artist doesn't have to go to sound check, right? Like, so it's a grueling thing. And then, and then when you have that trust with the artist after a while, and they know that you're their guy, then listen, they're taking feedback from you on how to improve their show. So, you have to be able to come up with ideas and say, hey, you know what? When we were in Houston, when we did this, it worked really well. We should add this to our show. Or, hey, we come into Houston. Normally we play a couple regional hits. These are the 3 I think we should use for Houston, but these are the 3 we should use in New York. These are the 3 we should use in LA. Like, you have to also like spend time working on not just pushing play and keeping it moving.
Yeah, how can you be an asset? DJ Zog is commenting, is it weird that I want to run my fingers through Sujit's beard?
What's up, Dogby? I don't know how, being as this is my first IG live, I don't know how people read the comments and shout people out. I know Kim's in here. I know Rush is in here. I know Izzy's in here. I know Brewster's in here. I see some people, but I don't know how y'all juggle it. Like, that's a little too much for me.
That's cool. Well, I'm going through comments now, and if feel free to drop your question again, so I don't want to miss your question. DJ Silver Knight asking, are you looking for new DJs and artists?
I mean, right now I'm just trying to get through Corona. I mean, once like our business has been halted in terms of the booking agency, so I don't think that when we come out of this, the agency, in terms of who we rep, will be smaller. Like our staff will be smaller. You know, we have to adjust. So I think the first step is to get out of this and get the people that I have back up and working. And once we can get that, and I can get my staff back to some sort of normalcy, you know, I'm a businessman. If there's a business in it, I'm always looking. So, but you know, I think the first step is just to get the doors back open, which
True.
fortunately, I don't think I booked my first travel gig yesterday, you know, in 3 months. So
Wow.
we're heading down that road.
Got it. Shouts out to D Train in here. Good to see you. Okay. The Adrian Pierce. How do you book a DJ for a clothing brand pop-up shop? So, I mean, that's part of the gig too, right?
How
Strategic
do I do it?
partnerships. How do DJs get booked for clothing brand pop-ups?
I mean, they have to fit the what that clothing brand is looking for. So typically, you know, they have a PR company or they have an event planner or they have something, and they're looking for a sound. I mean, those brands typically know what they want, right? They have a meeting and they're going to do this event and they discuss what they're looking for, and in that meeting, that you know, suggestions are made, and then they pursue those suggestions based on their budget, right? So so I think if that's a brand you want to work with, then you need to find an inlay to work to just get with the brand in general. And you might have to do one for free. You might have to say, hey, the next time we have a party, I just want to work with the brand. I might trade you clothes. Like you have to get in, and then as the relationship develops, or maybe you just go to their events 3 or 4 or 5 times and make friends with them.
Right. And I think you have to embody the brand. If you want to, DJ for a clothing brand pop-up, it's sort of to Sujit's point about Fashion Week, right? So if you want to, DJ for, Zach Posen or whatever, right? You've got to be able to be a person who they think is going to fit the brand and be able to embody what the brand is about. I also think, Suj, and I've seen this play out in my own city, and we're going to talk to a PR agent next week, but I think knowing the event planners and realizing that, your networking needs to be on every aspect. You never know who's going to be able to connect you with somebody. So knowing the event planners, knowing the PR people, and getting in good with those individuals as well, they can put your name in rooms that you may not walk into yet, at least as a suggestion. And then, Suj gets the call and does all the proper negotiations there. But, I think having an attitude of every person you meet could be somebody that somewhere down the road may give you a pull up in the business is a very smart way to approach things. You just never know where people are going to end up.
I think if you're starting out, to manage your expectations on what your fee is, like people like spin the wheel and they say, this is what I'm worth. And you're really only worth what someone's willing to pay you. And so if you do have a relationship with an event planner and they tell you, hey, this party is going to be, a lot of exposure. I need you to do it for less, but I'll take care of you on the other end with a gig that, I can find you some more money, or, hey, like we're going to do these 5 weddings and I can get you a little more money, but I got to do this one for the brand and you need to do it for free. Like you got to be willing to work with people as long as they don't, rip you off. But like, you got to find out who the people are that you can trust and try to build relationships with them. Sometimes you might have to do things for less. Sometimes you might have to do things for more. And, I feel like if you do have an agent or a manager, you have to trust them. And if you don't trust them, the minute the trust is gone, like it's time to find a new agent, right? So like if I'm telling you something, and I'm fighting for it, you just have to ride with it. And if you don't ride with it, you should find another agent.
I think that's real talk for sure. Let's see, DJ Silver Knight. When I DJ'd for Bone Crusher, I knew him for a year before he asked me to tour with him. It's many hours outside of music together. It was and still is a friendship. I think that's valid. Somebody mentioned to me the other day about JQ, and of course we both know and love JQ. He's my right hand at the box, and he's also Afternoon Drive co-host and he DJs, et cetera, et cetera. But JQ is signed to 50 Cent's brand, and JQ wanted that. I mean, both Sujit and myself witnessed that journey of trying to get that, correlation and assimilation together, and it didn't happen overnight. And JQ works at arguably one of the largest hip hop, rhythmic brands in the country, the Box, right? He's the assistant program director. So he's literally my right-hand person. He's got a high profile on the business side of things. And it was not an automatic for 50 to just come and scoop this guy. I mean, it was a few years of JQ methodically, strategically building layers and building relationships and showing and proving, where his skills were so that, that he would be able to hopefully obtain that at some point. And that was a goal that he had. He wanted to be associated with, like 50 Cent or some of the others out there, but he targeted 50, and he really liked what 50 stood for in terms of the branding. And it was a few years, and it was a lot of people co-signing him. It's a lot of 50 really vetting him. It wasn't just one interview and he got put on the squad. I mean, 50 really vetted JQ to the fullest, and it was a few years, and now he's in there like swimwear, but it really took a long time. So I would also say, I think Suj, you probably agree, patience, right? Patience and consistency.
And then just don't, you can't, when you get that call, you got to be prepared and do your best. They're like, I think I forgot. A lot of times in Vegas, when you get that, when they book that big act, like, I know Drake's played Excess a bunch of times, and Just Incredible's played for him, right? And then, can't have anyone in the booth. It's a huge night. All your friends want to be in the booth. All your friends want to be on the guest list. All your friends, people are, all of a sudden, all the friends you never knew you had pop up. But, I know Justin went alone. He didn't turn in a big guest list. He was like, listen, I'm going to work. Like the club's sold out. I'm a support act. I don't have 50 comps tonight. Like I just don't. Like the club's paying me. And in the DJ booth, they're like, yo, I'm gonna come to the DJ booth. Girls want to get in the DJ booth. He's like, dude, I can't. Like I'm at work. Like, I need to keep the DJ booth clear, because if Drake or Drake's DJ or someone wants to come up there, they don't want to feel uncomfortable about it. They don't want to, they want to know that their space is, safe, and that he's a professional and they can communicate with him. And he's also not ordering 6 bottles of free alcohol from the club saying, hey, like, I'm the DJ, I need another bottle for free, but look, like I said, that stuff comes with time. Like if you've been playing there for 2 or 3 years, then the club might be like, hey, send him another bottle. It's all good. Like he's our guy.
Right. So Greer 120, good question. How do you get a DJ? And because both sides of the game, Suj. So how do you get a DJ to play your music as an artist?
It has to be good.
Okay, fair. More than fair.
I think that, I think that it depends. To get radio is a complicated version, but I have this big, kind of pet peeve of, labels call me all the time and they say they want to hire me to work their song at clubs. And I'll ask them, have you ever been to a club? Because at 12 o'clock at night, when the club's going on, there isn't any new music getting played. Like when you're at a club and you're partying at 1 o'clock at night, you want to hear Beyonce, you want to hear Jay-Z, you want to hear the hits. You're not breaking or exposing new music at that time. So I think, and you also have to understand DJs are getting emailed and bombarded 1,000 songs a week. So if you don't have a personal relationship with that DJ, I would probably work on where you do have relationships and get the song a buzz from your own community. And now you can do it so many other ways with the internet, and get it some traction to where when you go to that DJ, you're going to them with some ammo and not just saying, like every other person, I have a good song.
This is an interesting question from Javago Blue. It says, as a DJ, is it difficult to keep up with the ever-changing trends in music? I kind of think that's the job, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's the job. I mean, I know when records were around, every DJ I knew spent 3, 4, 5 hours 2 times a week at the record store sitting there listening to records and listening to edits. So I know most of the DJs that I know, they're on, one of these websites like Headliner Music Club, and they're looking for edits and they're looking for CDs and they're discovering music, and they're also talking peer to peer with other DJs. So like if you go to Miami and you're playing live, but one of your friends has played the week before, you might ask them like, well, what was working and what wasn't working and what did it sound like and what didn't it sound like, and you might take some direction. But I think, that's just your job. Like if you're a DJ, you need to be on top of what you play, and you need to be ahead of the curve on what's hot. And it's the same thing as like, my other job. I listen to the radio all day, like all day. So
Really, he does. I can co-sign
really
that.
all day.
You know what, Suj, because we talked a lot about the DJ stuff, and I'm just browsing some more questions. So while I'm finding another question, talk about a little bit about like we talked about you and working with your DJs and influencers with Scam, but you also do the radio promotion thing with records. You've worked for major labels, indie labels, you work with artists, you're working, like you mentioned, Don Tolliver and that whole camp, in this particular moment, but you've worked with so many. I won't spend 10 minutes going down a laundry list, but to get on your radar in terms of being an independent artist that you'll work with for trying to break them into radio, what are some of the key things that you're looking for?
Same thing. Like usually if they have some sort of buzz, right? Like they have to do some of the heavy lifting on their own. And just to be real, like they have to be able to afford my fee, right? Like, so it's like in order to get me involved, I have to know that they have a commitment to the song and the project. And, I can't work 100 records at a time. So I have to pick and choose my projects. And so, unfortunately, that comes with a fee. And that's fortunate for me, but unfortunate for them. So they have to have the resources to be able to pay it. So I have to like and believe the project. So if somebody sends me a new record, I might go to my 2 or 3 or 4 guys. Say somebody sends me a record and they have the money to hire me, then I might send it to 2 or 3 or 4 of my guys and see if they like it, check the temperature. And if they like it and or it's not, I don't think it's going to be, they're not going to want to hang up on me when I call, then I might say, okay, well, listen, I think we have something like it's worth pursuing. But if I call, E-Man and E-Man's like hanging up on me, like, dude, don't
Right.
you dare. Like I'll probably pass on it because it's not worth the grief.
Right. So I think that's a really good point to note is that, it's business, right? So you don't have to take on everybody, right? And you're not obligated to. And so I think, people needing that want to grow in the business, first and foremost, I think you have to view yourself like a business. I always tell this to artists, you're the CEO, man. It don't matter who your manager is. It doesn't matter. I mean, I love Sujit. He's an awesome booking agent, but at the end of the day, it starts with you, right? And it's about how you set up your business, how you take your business seriously. You don't have the luxury to just be the artist. You don't have the luxury to just be the DJ. You don't have the luxury of just being the influencer and doing the fun, creative stuff. That business side of things is essential, and you've got to treat and handle yourself like a business. And if you're not willing to do that, like, it's disappointing to see, how many people just expecting, just a handout instead of a hand up, right? There's two very different things, a hand up is somebody who can bring something to the table and I'm reaching and I'm giving you a hand up. A handout is just you're expecting something for nothing. And I think in business, it's just not really the smart business strategy to pursue that. Just once in a while, sure, the stars align and you get that unexpected break that you didn't expect to get. I won't say that never happens, but I think it's happening with more frequency for the people that are much more prepared and taking themselves seriously and treating themselves like a business and doing the creative stuff, which we all love, but also taking the time to make sure that that real deal business stuff and you're teaching people how to treat you and you're being a professional and you're understanding that time is money, money is time.
I think too, like, when I first started, there was a big management company called Buzztone, and they had like Cypress Hill, Keith Murray, Redman, and they signed an act and they were like, oh, we're doing a tryout for 3 months with them. And I was like, what does that mean? Why do you do a tryout? I'm like, why don't you want to sign them? And they were like, well, it's a tryout for them and it's a tryout for us. And they go, why? Because if we don't like working with them and they're too much work or they're too difficult or they're irresponsible or we can't trust them or they're all over the place, then we might not want the headache. So it's the same thing as if you are an independent artist and, we tell you to be at the box at 3 and you show up at 4:30, like, and I had broken my back head over heels to get you to take the meeting in the first place. And you're like, yo, Suge, we didn't even want to do this anyways. And you suckered us into doing it. And now he's an hour and a half late. Tell him not to come back to the box next time he's in Texas. And I'm like, so then when he's calling me about Dallas the next day, I'm like, shit, I just got burned in Houston. Am I really going to put my neck out in Dallas again? Because, Mark or Jesse, they'd be like, they know that I'm good, but they'd be like, yo, what's up with your boy? Like, because like, I think we did a phone interview with French yesterday in Fort Myers, and the program director hit us and he's like, on time, professional, on point. And I was like, yeah, of course. What do you think? Like, we don't have contest winners with us. Like, if we say that's going to happen, most of the time it's going to happen. And fun fact, I remember when you texted me last week and you were like, will I do this? And you were like, it's at 6 a.m. your time. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then when you called me this morning, I was like, oh, I'm asleep, but I wasn't asleep.
No, I know that. I know you. So I'm going to take one question here, and then we're at our time, so I'm about to wrap up. But just a good question, I think, in general from So Rare. Do you believe in all the music you market, or do you just market those that can pay your fee?
No, I believe in all of them.
Exactly.
I wouldn't take it because I'm a salesman, and like I can't sell something that I don't believe. So if I don't believe, then I wouldn't do it.
And I would say, and I don't want to speak.
But
But
rewind, when you're at a label and you have a job,
well,
you don't get like I'm a freelance guy now, so I can pick my poison a little more. But when I was at Epic or when I was at Universal, I didn't get to pick what I believed. I got to pick what the boss believed, and so I would have to do my best. But oftentimes, what I would do with radio, if I didn't believe, was I approach them with a different intensity. So speaking of records, like right now, Don Toliver, I think is 100% go. So I'm hammering people over the head with it with a much more intensity than maybe a record that I think isn't as promising at this stage, right? Like I have developing acts and I have other acts, and you approach them regionally and you approach them in different ways, but they get there at some point, hopefully.
I think that's a really good distinction because, when you're working for someone, I always tell people you serve at the pleasure of the president. That's you when you're working for a major label. Definitely me, working with the team at Radio One, for example. There's objectives and incentives and things up from the top, and our job is to execute, and serve at the pleasure of the president. You're in a particular place now. You have Scam, that's your company. And, you're, like you said, able to be in a position, you're freelancing, you're out here and you're picking the projects that you want to work with, and it's strictly all passion. I think that's beautiful.
I think the key is to just listen to everybody, because my job is to sell, but your job is to program your radio station. So sometimes I'm right, sometimes you're right. Like if
right.
I'm basing my sales pitch on success stories in other markets and my gut from being out in the clubs, right, and just being a part of the community. You're basing it on your region, your community. So I have to listen to you, and it's sometimes like sometimes people will say, hey, this isn't for us right now. Well, if you say that, then I might go build it on the West Coast and then bring it back to you and say, hey, Terry, I know this wasn't for you 6 weeks ago, but I'm still here. Like, can you take another look at it? And you might be like, no, not yet. And then I might have to come back a month later. Whereas, I know a lot of people will want like overnight spins or favors. I'm not really that guy. I don't really want it.
And I'm not that girl either, right? So, I mean, Sujit and I, we have a deep understanding. I never take promotions that are on a record that I would never play. I just think that's bad business. Like if I'm going to support a record, I'm going to support the record, period. And if we happen to, do a contest or fly away over it, then great. But I'm not that person that's looking for that kind of vibe. I'm really trying to program the best possible radio station to be able to achieve the objectives of my job and make a difference here in the community on top of it. But, we both work for businesses. When you're working for a major label, that's a business and your own business. And that, I'm working for my company, and so the business, we're not a nonprofit, right? So the job is to put together a product that's going to generate ratings in the specific target demo in huge numbers for the purposes of generating revenue. And there's other nuances and wonderful things about the job that I absolutely love. Like we have the opportunity to serve the community and do a lot of great things, and we do. But at the end of the day, if the ratings don't look right and the revenue doesn't look right, then Terry is not going to be working very long. So I have a job to do for the company that pays me too. Just like if you're working with Suge, you have a job. You have to do what you have to do to be able to be an asset to the person that's hired you, right?
Yeah, I always, it's happened to me in my career several times where the chairman of Epic or Universal has had a project that they believed in that I probably didn't at the beginning, and they've said, haha, look, I was right. And there's also been the occasion where there's been stuff on the label that wasn't on their radar that I've had to wave the flag and been like, I know this is your priority, but we need to switch, and this needs to be our priority right now because this is a winner, and we need to I understand your objective, but this is going to be our objective. Like
That happens on my side too. You know, a label will come and say, this is a single, and I'm like, I'm not going to go down the laundry list, but there's a list, you know, and I know I'm very opinionated. And, you know, me and my team here, you know, we know what's going to work for us, you know, and I can't say everything's going to work everywhere else, but I have to know what's going to work here. And so, you know, there have been times where I said, well, that record's great, but I'm telling you, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one. And, you know, gratefully, I haven't been wrong more than I haven't been wrong. You know, I've been wrong occasionally, but, you know, I've got a pretty decent track record. So, you know, but that's about networking and developing trust, because I can give feedback to Sujit, and because we have a relationship, and, you know, he knows that I've got a good spidey sense. And then on the same hand, I know Sujit does as well. You know, I may not always be ready for the project that he's working in that moment. That is absolutely true. But I trust Sujit, and I know he's bringing me real info. He's not snowing me. He's not BSing me. You know, his passion is connected to something that's legit, and he's been right more times than he's been wrong. And so that's where the network and the relationship comes in. And it's about being patient and consistent. So a no today is not a no never. You know, a no today is just like, whatever, my landscape may not look right to be able to put that project in my mix at this particular moment, because it's a gumbo and there's specific ingredients I need to have at a particular time to make up the recipe that we call 97.9 The Box, or Magic 102, or Radio Now, or Praise Houston. There's a specific recipe there, and I may need a particular type of record at a particular time. And then, you know, Sujit's been networking and working and keeping his records on the radar and building that story. And so when the ingredient, and I'm like, oh, out of that ingredient, need an ingredient like this, Sujit's got it, it's easy to come in. But that's our relationship, and that's building trust and having, you know, communication, good, honest communication over a period of time.
I mean, just a couple of things on that. I mean, I have this Rotimi record that I've been working for like 100 months. And, you know, I've watched radio stations tell me about every major release that's coming out, and they've jumped above me, and they've come and they've gone, and we're still here. And every week we get, you know, a few more ads, a few more stations, and every week we get a few more believers. And now the song is, you know, #2 Shazam in New York. So even if it doesn't go all the way to #1 on the chart, it's a big stepping step for him as an artist. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say is, you know, when you're dealing with artists, you know, they want to make the decisions based on the facts. So if they have 2 songs out and they're thinking about one song, but 5 PDs are telling me it's the other one, if I give them that info, they're not stupid. They might switch based on that info, as long as they know it's coming from a credible source and not my own opinion that I've decided when I'm having a party that this is going to be the future, but I'm basing it on Terri, Houston, you know, Dallas, Austin. Wait, 5 or 6 people are steering me the other way. Maybe we need to rethink this. And they're like, really? And they're like, okay, well, then they fact check me, right? Because they do. They'll go call 3 or 4 or 5 people that they listen to. And if it all adds up, they might be, hey, you know what? You're right. Scrap this and let's go the other way. Or they might say, hey, we appreciate the feedback, but this is our vision and we're going to write it out. But at least they have the information with which to make that decision.
All right, well, we are at our time. So I want to say thank you, Sujit, for being up super early, because I know you're working on the West Coast and you're up super early to be on here today. The information's been invaluable. I think it's really going to help people. I did go ahead and tag Sujit down here in the comments, where you can see him on Instagram at SkamArtist. So he's there. And I just appreciate everybody for waking up with us this morning. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to a publicist, so we're going to have that side of the business. And then next Thursday, it's the Senior Vice President of Urban Promotion for RCA Records, Sam Salawani. She's going to be our guest. So Sujit, you're awesome. Thank you so much, my friend. I owe you some queso with the ground beef.
And shout out to everyone in the comments. It's my first IG Live, PJ, Kiona, Gusto, I see y'all. I don't know how to juggle this stuff like you kids nowadays.
Well, you did a great job, Suge. I'm happy that today was your first IG Live. This is going to be a special moment for our friendship forever.
You got it. All right, T.
All right, have a good one. Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a great day.